So what I will say, as usual, is we can't afford not to record. Welcome back to the first of this year's podcast episodes. We took the entire month of January off. And so we're popping in February. Oh no. Like you're kicking some ash there.
Hope I ain't light my sweatpants on fire.
So because we haven't got the video up and running yet, which is of course the next step.
No blooper reels for you all today.
Got the cigar going, and the ashes were bumped into the microphone, which is the sound you heard. And then the wiping vigorously is the removal of the ashes. And we've got a lot to talk about. I think we didn't sit down and really pregame heavily, but there's a reminder of what's been going on in the world. We just had Donald Trump win the primary for New Hampshire after everybody but Nikki Haley bounces out of this thing. We have Cat Williams and Shannon Sharp changing all of Black Twitter. And the memes are out this world. Every comic in the whole world has been put on blast, except Mike Epps. Mike Epps out here mad. He's like, you could have said something, man. I got a special coming out too. I need the press.
A lot going on.
Yes.
And not for me personally, I actually got on social media again. Facebook, there's a page, a group that has me hooked. Photoshop edits. If you're not a part of it.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Oh, man. And it swings. Because, it's like somebody's like, here's my picture from prom 85. Do your worst.
Yeah.
And then somebody's like, this is the last picture I have of my grandma, and it's fuzzy. Could you fix it? And and it's a ride.
But nobody's safe. Because even if you post a picture of your grandma, you might not be safe.
You might not be safe. Yeah, some of the edits will get a little. Well, you know what? It's almost always the same edit. They'll put her on the couch.
Yeah,
it's kind of the meme that's returned, and I'm not certain where that came from. I guess clearly it looks like it's come from some kind of pornographic movie.
Yeah,
but
it's almost like a gangbang of like 4 black men on.
Does the couch matter? Like, because I don't know if it's just it happens.
Have you seen the original picture?
No. I don't think you've seen the original picture. To me, this feels like a meme of a meme of a meme of a meme.
I've seen it on the group, and I actually had somebody explained it in the group. They're like, hey, it comes from this scenario where it's a real petite white girl with braces, surrounded by like 4 or 5 black men behind the couch, and it's to me it looks disgusting. Just the thought of something going down like that. But I think that is where the white couch comes from on the Photoshop.
Well, I mean, I think I understood that. And I also understood that, like, when it comes to pornography and the internet, which is, I guess, also one of the scariest things about having kids, is if you can think up 2 things and put them together, there's going to be pornography about it. And so the idea of something being disgusting, like it's out there.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the white couch kind of signifies that if you're posting on here, prepare to be overwhelmed by what you're about to receive. So
that is a very sweet bow put on this
where
thing.
It's not you are pretty much the little innocent looking white girl, and the internet is the 5 black guys that are about to,
I've always been uncomfortable with that theme because it's a theme that pops up in a lot of places. That particular image. That's where I was like, I don't think you've seen the original, because I feel like there's been images of this image and especially in kind of conservative media where I spend a lot of time. Unfortunately, there's this kind of take your manhood back statement, and so in opposition of that take your manhood back, there's kind of this thing out there like, these guys are out there getting your wife, and
oh no, you're looking too deep into it. I think it's a metaphor for the internet, about to have fun, have their way with whoever is brave enough to post on this.
I think that's true page. In this instance, but it is not true in the places that I've seen that,
seen
that same thing.
Okay,
that I've seen that couch gag. And And I'm still there, still on that media. And I did a confession last time that I've gotten
Too deep.
Too deep. I've made a strong crazy thing. Made a real good conservative friend. I'll tag him in on this, and he often yells at me, like calls me on the phone. We call on the phone. I've called him more than not like he's harassing me, but I'm like, I got to talk to this guy so he knows I'm real, and he still yells at me on the phone. And again, it sounds like a family member. Like, he's, Larry, listen, Larry, here's what you got to do. So he almost sounds like he could be family. Crazy thing is, this man went to Hampton University. What? He was in the Navy.
Is he
out
white?
in the shipyards? He's white, or at least that he claims to be white. White's a very complicated thing. It really sounds like he has a richer cultural heritage than the word white would count for, and so it makes it very difficult. But he feels like right now he needs to claim the mantle of white because white people are okay. But I think his heritage has a little bit more understanding or depth or nuance to it.
I need some more on this.
He may have Cuban island, Eastern South America roots, heritage.
White. He identifies as white.
He identifies as white.
If you see him on the street, you're going to say he's white.
Until, and this goes into a kind of an instance you and I even were in, until he wants to say something that might be considered off-brand or racist.
So his heritage is a defense.
I'm not certain. I don't think we've gone deep enough into that. But if you were to call him and say, man, I don't think people would like to be spoken to that way, then he'd be like, well, I am those people, and I'm okay with it. It's like people that are like, you shouldn't say Redskins. I am indigenous. And I'm like, are you? Because you weren't last week.
So he's an Elizabeth Warren.
No, he's not, because he has not fully claimed any of these. Sometimes it sounds like it's by proxy. I haven't got him figured out, and I don't think he's got me figured out.
I haven't even met him.
You haven't met him. You think you got him figured out, and I think in our private discussion, the conversation was, chances are, he wants to be angry.
Yes.
And he's looking for an excuse to continue that anger.
Yes.
And that kind of jives. Which makes me feel better.
I still think you're in an abusive relationship. He's yelling at you. Does he hear what you're saying? Or is he listening so that he can prove a point?
I don't think so. I don't think even listening to prove a point. Because sometimes the things I'll say he doesn't really react back to. He goes back to his previous points.
Oh, so he's not listening.
In a lot of cases, I don't think so. But what led me to that conversation in the first place is starting to believe the people you're talking to. So one of the things he and I kind of almost always the conversation scoots back to is women and how men don't have any power. I think this goes even back to that, like why I looked at this couch gag different. And so his belief is that women have everything right now. The courts protect them. They are given free range into jobs if they want it. Is everything protects women, and men are getting the shaft.
Somebody in the majority telling you that another minority group has it better than him. I don't know. BS.
I agree. I don't. But
that's like saying that blacks are getting all the benefits right now because of affirmative action.
Right. It's exactly that. And that is also a statement that is believed, that affirmative action is unfair to white people, and it doesn't allow us to hire the best person. That's kind of the affirmative action, and the same thing is true with women. Now here's where we get into a little bit of a problem. In some instances he's correct.
How so?
When it comes to parental rights, how the courts see fathers, there's a lot of fathers who will go into court and will not get treated fairly.
Okay.
And he's just absolutely right about that. But I think that instance that needs to be corrected does not warrant how far out he wants to push it. But also, when you push it out far, it prevents you from doing any work on the issue. Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm going to shout out Greg Maxwell. Greg Maxwell is working with a group. When we had the men's group together, he said, we've got this group that's working specifically towards fathers' rights. And I was like, well, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Because there are issues in terms of fathers' rights. There's issues in terms of paternities. There's issues in terms of a lot of things that the court systems have to navigate. I don't particularly, and I think that sometimes is an issue, just because it's not part of my lived experience. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to be like, yeah, let's get into it. Because Greg's into it. If he does something, I'm going to support Greg because I think he's got a good reason to be into it. And it may be the same exact thing as he knows somebody else that has an issue and he's been fighting for that and he's seen it firsthand. And I trust his firsthand. But I trust Maxwell enough where if he says, hey, this is an issue that's worth investigating and meeting up for, I'm down for it.
Okay. Well, because we know that Greg will use factual. He will present you with facts.
Right.
I don't believe your buddy does that.
No. It really feels in most instances like it's women that are the problem.
To him.
Mm-hmm. Not that it's an unfair court system. Not that.
Which it sounds like you're examining a dynamic that he is totally off his radar.
Right. I don't think he's willing to dive into one of the issues for correction. Mm-hmm. But I think that goes back to the point that you were making about it being an issue of feeding and anger.
Yes.
And the thinking I was having is, well, what if he truly is surrounded by these kind of women?
Not possible. I don't think it's possible.
And it may not be.
It unless it's by choice.
Well, the question is, do they? Because the thing I keep going back to.
I don't doubt that any type of person exists.
Right, but in numbers large enough that legislation is needed.
I think, like, I don't doubt your buddy exists. Mm-hmm. I choose not to surround myself by the people like him.
I mean, I get that, but and I'm gonna steer it back. Remember the women's march we went to? Not the big one, the one we went to after Roe v. Wade was overturned. Mm-hmm. So
local
we go out
or
there.
Roanoke?
Local.
Okay.
The local one we went to, mostly women running this march. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a few guys sprinkled around in it, but mostly women. Mm-hmm. And then the counter protest comes up, and it's all dudes.
Yep.
Those guys, the women they know, would have an abortion for fun.
I don't think so.
I could never imagine it, because none of the women in the group that we were with, if they were faced with an abortion, something serious was going on. Mm-hmm. So I don't need legislation. Like, I don't need legislation to make it illegal to put your hand in the toaster and keep it there. Because putting your hand in the toaster and keeping it there causes pain.
Yes.
So you don't need legislation for abortions. And that's what it feels, except they have to be surrounded by these type of people. Is the only thing I can think of that makes sense to me.
I think you're overthinking it. Bottom line, guy wants to be angry. That's all you need to know. He's going to feed that anger. He's going to continue to feed that anger.
Mm-hmm. Well, and where it concerns me is that's a little bit of what this next election is about.
Yes, I agree.
Is about who gets to be angry about what.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, I have a friend on Facebook who's actually a pastor, who is I'd almost say a denier of, I guess, historical accuracies. Mm-hmm. To the point where, you know, he praises any Confederate general for their birthday, and
you got like a birthday list?
Yeah, like
happy birthday,
I did recently. There was he had.
But General Lee, they tried to give him
MLK
Day.
General Lee, you know, post about his birthday. Stonewall Jackson post about his birthday, and then Columbus.
Yeah.
To the point where I'm not gonna say Indigenous Peoples Day. It's Columbus Day. It will always be Columbus Day. To me, why?
Well, I think some of it has to be a feeling of loss. Is something about the story of Columbus, something about the stories of Robert E. Lee, something about the stories of Stonewall Jackson resonated with who he hoped to be or who he thinks this country is.
Well, question.
Okay.
Would you be willing to give up MLK if you find out that he was just the worst person on earth?
Man, we might find this out.
We really. I don't feel like I have that attachment, though. To me, losing somebody in my lifetime that I looked up to was worse than that. Bill Cosby.
Yeah. What I will say is...
But in the end, if he's a jerk, gotta let him go.
I have the feeling if...
I learned from Gayle King.
Oh...
I loved Gayle King and Charlie Rose, but when he did
Charlie
wrong,
Rose.
she got on. She got over it.
Oh, and she loved her some Charlie Rose too.
The show will go on.
She loved her some Charlie Rose. You know what I will say? I think it's very plausible. Two things. One, if they start releasing these tapes, we'll get a shift in who he is. But there's also this belief that he either participated in a rape or knew about it and had the power to intervene and didn't. And I think that's something that will damage his reputation to the point where he won't be who he is. And I think what will happen for most African Americans is if we can change MLK Day to Civil Rights Bill Day, I don't think it'll be a problem.
I'm fully on board. Take his monument down. I will not. I will not protest.
Yeah. I don't think I think the fact that the monument went up, that we have pictures and news stories, I don't think it's going to erase it from history. And I also don't think understanding who he is completely erases it from history either. But I think it is the cost of doing business, is when you make heroes of human beings, they're still human beings. And so that is kind of the big brunt of this particular episode. So we're coming in, and about time to start closing this particular.
All right. Well, let's close with what do we have coming up? Future episodes.
No, I'm not doing that anymore.
Okay. No.
Learned our lesson. So we got some feedback. Part of what's taken so long is the feedback. One of the big pieces of feedback is we have been kind of wonky with promising what's coming into the next episode and not hitting it.
I'm stepping back. I ain't doing
so
that.
Not next episode, but in upcoming episodes. You know what? I'm gonna be brave.
Okay.
You know what? Next episode.
You told me to step back.
I did. I told you to step back, and then I looked at that spot and I said, "You know what? I want that spotlight."
All right.
Next episode, we're gonna hit Shannon Sharp.
Okay. Yep.
Cat Williams episode.
Cat
Williams.
Cat Williams and Shannon Sharp. We're gonna get the cognac out for this one.
And he was swallowing so hard, I tried to do my impression and almost choked myself. All right. So we'll hit the Shannon Sharp episode on that. And I know some of the things we still do. We're still going to touch on school board meetings. Got to be gone through. We did almost a full year. We got another year and a half that can still be caught up with. And they've gone from possible book bans to an actual banning committee here in the county. So that stories are going to be worth retelling. We've got a special episode that's going to be aired, which is the Martin Luther King Breakfast, which will be aired as its own episode with video.
Shout out to Mr. Woods.
Yes.
First name.
Matt
Woods. Because I didn't remember, because I was a little too old. I think you actually might have had him as a student.
I had him as a student, yes.
Okay. Awesome. Amazing young man.
And now I'm trying to get Dr. Woods to hire me for
Matt
jobs.
Woods. Okay.
He feels like the best example of loss for this county. So at no point was he ever hired for a job in Franklin County Public Schools. I can personally account some failures in helping this young man forward. He came to me and asked me to help connect him, I think, with the Park Service and to help connect him somewhere else. And I did a soft connect, and then not because like I didn't want him to root for him. I didn't know how to do connections. Like I don't know how. I didn't have, especially at that time, the ability to network and how to effectively use networks.
Well, you know what? I don't think I learned that until I turned 35. Closer to 40.
I had to. Yeah.
I didn't realize how strong my network had gotten until I turned 40.
Some of it is that way. I didn't, and I still struggle a little bit with my network because I have some issues with making personal connections and making connections with names and faces and those kind of things. So sometimes I'm leery to step into my network, and I don't think I was effective at passing him on to folks he needed. But I think what he was good at is if he passed me some information, I wasn't the only person he handed it to. Mm-hmm. So he handed it out to 10 people. 2 people come through, he's got 2 pass forward.
Oh, okay.
So he's a hustler. He's got a book out right now. He's got a podcast that I follow called Leading Out of the Woods. It's worth listening to. And this has been Misunderstood.
Hey. Till next time.
I heard a man talking, didn't know what he was saying, but it kept on spilling. His words just the same. His mind seemed scrambled like a burned out candle with half the wick missing and a nothing for flame. Give me a savior that takes me away. Give me a blanket and a space for my head. When time descends like an old stage curtain on the back of my eyelids, I'll be in a place instead. Just kept rambling, talking 19 to the dozen, like a worn out needle, tripping right across that groove. He said there's a silence that's creeping in darkness, but why look for answers when there's nothing to prove? Give me a savior that takes me away. Give me a blanket and a space for my head. When time descends like an old stage curtain on the back of my eyelids, I'll be in a place instead. If time were elastic, would we dare ask it to hold on to something before it melts down like ice? And if we could listen, we'd hear back the laughter, 'cause no one ever wades through the same river twice. Give me a savior that takes me away. Give me a blanket and a space for my head. When time descends like an old stage curtain on the back of my eyelids, I'll be in a place instead. When time descends like an old stage curtain on the back of my